everyone, and welcome to Alumni Ambassador Program Phase 2, organized by Dr. NGP Institute of Technology, Department of Electrical and Electronics Engineering. My heartfelt welcome to our alumni, principal, HOD, faculty members, and participants for today's wonderful session. I'm glad to introduce to you our alumnus and today's presenter, Mr. R. Deepak, of batch 2013 to 2017. He had his high school at Erode Hindu Kalvi Nilayam and finished college with a degree of Bachelor of Engineering, Electrical and Electronics Engineering from Dr. NGP Institute of Technology and completed Masters of Business Administration, Power Management at University of Petroleum and Energy Studies, Dehradun. He is a power sector professional with specialization in financial modeling, regulation, consulting, power trading, and risk management. He has acquired a number of licenses and certifications, including C++C, LabVIEW, and a certificate of merit from Codex Design Service, and also oil and gas industry operation and markets from Duke University, financial markets from Yale University, microeconomics principles from University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, energy market of today from Technische Universität Delft. He completed a recent internship with EV Oracle and developed business models for the electric vehicle taxi business, charging infrastructure business, and worked on electric vehicle fleet management, scheduling, and dispatch models for electric vehicles. He has done an extensive research in the field of electric vehicles and charging infrastructure. I gladly welcome you to give us an overview of Indian power sector and its opportunities. Welcome, sir.
Thank you for the introduction, Dashinika. And good evening, everyone. Good evening to the students and good evening to the faculty members and staffs. Good evening, HOD sir, and all other staffs. It gives me an immense pleasure to be a part of this alumni relationship, and I feel that today you will come to know a little bit about the power sector and everything. So, shall we start with the presentation?
Yes, Deepak, we can proceed.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. So basically today we will be looking at an overview of Indian power sector and the opportunities which is provided by the power sector. Before going into this presentation, I would like to I would like to know what is the difference between an industry and a company. Does anyone know what is the difference between an industry and a firm or a company? So this will give you a basic idea of the entire presentation. Is anyone aware of it? What is an industry or what is a firm or company? So basically an industry is like power sector is an industry, energy sector is that is called an industry, financial sector that is an industry. So industry, every economies we are dealing with happens within the industry, and a firm or a company is like an individual firm or a company. For example, Adani is working in an entire sector. For example, in FMCG sector, energy sector, then power sector and everything. So that is the basic difference between when you talk about an industry or a company. So this I want to clear it before we are going into this presentation. And the presentation will be a combination of both technical and business terms. I've tried to reduce the number of business exposure because the audience is not that much exposed to the business environment. So I'll keep myself restrained within the technicality of the power industry. So basically, this is going to be the today's agenda for the today's agenda. So general introduction to the overall power sector and the industry, and what are all the verticals of the power sector, and you'll come to know what are all the various agencies, what are all the various private agencies, public sector agencies, regulatory agencies involved in power sector, Next, you will come to know about the current status of the power sector. Next, what are all the new and emerging trends in power sector, so that you can, as a students, you can prepare you as students, you can prepare yourself to face that in future. And what it takes to be, and finally, what it takes to become a power sector professional. A little bit of advice from my side: what it really takes to become a power sector professional in a then at last, I'll showcase some opportunities which power sector is providing to everyone. So this is the basic agenda for the today's session. Let's get into the topic. So in general introduction, what it is. Generally, power sector is a very capital intensive industry. That is the first thing which you want to know. Capital intensive industry in the sense, like, for example, to establish a power plant, 1 megawatt power plant, you would require 4 to 5 crores. So, say for example, if you want to build, for example, 1,000 megawatt power plant for a 1,000 megawatt thermal power plant, it would require for you 4,000 to 5,000 crores of investment only for the certain thermal power plant. So it is a very capital intensive industry, and the entire industry falls under the infrastructure sector of infrastructure sector, as the infrastructure part is very much involved here. So, certain verticals of the industry are regulated, while certain verticals are deregulated. First, I will let you know what is meant by regulation and what is meant by deregulation. Regulation, in the sense, it is like there are rules, certain rules that should be followed when you are operating within the industry. For example, I'll give you an example of deregulated industry. FMCG sector is a deregulated industry. There is no particular rules and regulations for cosmetic industries, for those kind of fast-moving consumer goods industries. So that is a deregulated industry. But opposite to that is a regulated industry, and power sector is a regulated industry. In general, energy sector as a whole is a regulated industry in many parts of the world. So competition exists in most of the verticals, but still natural monopolies exist. So here it is like competition. Always it is good to have competition when you are having a private sector play. Competition exists in generation part here, and in distribution part. We'll look into that details in later part of this presentation. Then still natural monopolies also exist there. Natural monopoly means presence of only a single organization in the particular industry. For example, in transmission, we have Power Grid Corporation of India Limited, the biggest monopoly in India. That is the presence of a single company is called as a monopoly. What natural monopoly is that the nature of the industry demands it to be natural monopoly. Say, for example, transmission sector is a natural monopoly. I will explain to you why it is a natural monopoly. And next is still complete unbundling is pending. Unbundling, it is like in olden days, pre-independence era or post-independence era, up to 1980, 1990s, the entire power sector was vertically integrated, meaning that generation, transmission, distribution, all were controlled by a single organization or a group of organizations. So after the power sector reforms, which basically happened during 1990, from 1990 to 2003, what happened? It is like the sector was divided into different industries. Generation is typically an individual industry. Transmission is typically made into an different industry. Then distribution altogether made an different industry. But still, there is scope for dividing the industry further into to achieve competition and everything. So next is introduction of renewables and storage is changing the entire dynamics of the industry, both technically and economically. Because as you know that renewables can operate for 5 to 6 hours, provided that if it is solar, it can operate to 5 to 6 hours during the daytime. So integrating that 5 to 34 gigawatt during the daytime into the grid, that is the biggest technicality when it comes to both technically and economically. It is like renewables are achieving, for example, recently the solar power plant auction, it saw a rate of per unit rate of 2.34. So one single unit of electricity from solar is costing around rupees 2.34. It is the lowest tariff in India. So that is basically challenging the other conventional power plants like thermal power plants, nuclear power plants, hydro power plants. So introduction of renewables is changing the entire scope in all throughout the sector. Next, you want to know that electricity is a concurrent subject. Concurrent subject in the sense like uh, laws, policies, regulations can be made by both the central government also, by both the and by the state government also. Basically, that it falls under the law preview of both state sector, say state government and central government. Say for example, if there is a dispute of power within Tamil Nadu, state government is responsible. They have to take actions and everything. If it is between two states or three states, if it is between some interstates, then the central government obviously has its roles to play. And another one factor which you want to know is that per capita consumption of India is around 1208 kilowatt hour, which is basically means that as an average individual, as average citizen of India consumes around 1208 units per year. So it has basically doubled from 2005 to 2006, which at that time it was around like 631.4 kilowatt hour. So basically within preview of 15 years, we have basically doubled the per capita consumption. To have a basic idea of per capita consumption, why per capita consumption is important for socio-economic development is like the per capita income, the per capita consumption of electricity of a particular US citizen is around like 4,000 kilowatt hour. Say for say for example, you're consuming 1,208 kilowatt hour, and all your basic necessities are covered. Just think of how an American citizen is using electricity there over there, and entire thing is like there is no need for any conventional fuel such as wood, kerosene. They've just migrated that conventional carbonized electricity totally into an energy into electricity. So basically, then AT&C losses of India stood around 18.19 percentage. This is for 2019 to 20 period. AT&C losses is basically that we 100 percentage we are producing. Say for example, if we are producing 100 megawatt in a power plant, and when it reaches the consumer, you will be having a loss of around 18.19 percentage. Line losses, we would say, in AT&C losses include both transmission and distribution losses and commercial losses too. So is it clear, or is anyone having any doubts regarding this what I just spoke about? Hello.
No doubt, sir.
No doubt, sir.
Yeah, that's clear. If anyone is having any doubts, you can stop me at any point of time, and I can clear it for you. So let's move on to the next slide. This is the general introduction about the power industry and everything. Let's dig deep into it, into the verticals of the power sector. Power sector has basically four verticals. It is like a generation, transmission, distribution, and at last we have a power markets. Generation, these four verticals, I think so you guys know it before. Three verticals.
Deepak,
Yes, sir.
Deepak, sorry to the disturb.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Jagan.
Yes, sir.
Deepak, you can please more demand side management. You can talk about demand side. At
Sure,
last.
sir. At last, I will. Yes, sir. Sure, I'll talk about demand side management. Sure, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So these are the three. Basically, you guys know about this major three verticals: generation, transmission, and distribution. Power markets is basically like a kind of a business domain. I will also explain that. In generation, we have central generating stations, state generating state means like within the state. Private generation units are there. Adani is there. Tata Power is there. Then Reliance Power is there. Then there are n number of solar developers are there within this country, and there is basically joint venture. Joint venture in the sense that state government or a central government they include private participation and they construct a power plant. It is a combination of both private ownership and public ownership. And captive power plants. This captive power plants I will explain in later part of the presentation. And this is the in general these are the generating verticals of the power sector. Next, if you come into transmission vertical, we have a central transmission unit. and the state transmission unit, system operator, dispatch agencies. I'll explain what is central transmission unit. Central transmission unit is like the transmission unit under the central government is called as a central transmission unit, and the India's biggest central transmission unit and one of the PSU is Power Grid Corporation of India Limited. Then we have state transmission unit. Every states have their own transmission units. For example, we have TAN Transco, which is our state transmission unit. Similarly, all other states have their own transmission units. Then we have system operators. System operators, dispatch agencies. I'll explain you later in this PPT. This three terms: system operator, captive power plants, dispatch agencies. We'll look into it deeply. And distribution, we have state-owned discoms, we have private distribution, we have franchisees, we have retail companies. In Tamil Nadu, it is the discom, the distribution company TNEB is owned by the state government, so we fall under state-owned discom. And in certain parts of our country, for example, Mumbai, Agra, West Bengal, Kolkata, we have private discoms. Reliance is into distribution business. Tata Power is doing distribution business, and Kolkata Electricity Supply Company, they are doing distribution business. So basically, that is private discoms. And franchisees are like an exciting part of the distribution segment because, for example, Tamil Nadu Electricity Board, they are deciding that one part of the operation should go under franchising. That means that, for example, let's say that Tamil Nadu Electricity Board is going to franchise operation and maintenance of distribution transformers within the state. So they are appointing, say, for example, Adani Power. So that is called as Adani Power will look all the operation and maintenance of distribution transformer within the state. So that is called as a franchisee model of distribution. And retail companies, that I'll explain in later. And so after that, we have power markets. What power markets is like, similarly, it is used for trading of electricity. Basically, it takes place there. Trading happens, long-term power purchase agreements, everything happens within this vertical of the power sector. I'll explain deeply when we go into this presentation in later parts. Is there any doubts regarding this presentation, this PPT verticals of power sector? Okay, then I'll just move on. So if we just look into a generation part, basically, like a generation is a delicensed activity. Anyone with proper investment can start a generation company in India. There is no such license. It is not a licensed activity, and private sector can obviously, if you see the private sector participation, it is the most highest 46.9%, and it is expected to reach around like 60-70% within 2030 private participation. And both central and state sector are going to reduce their stakes in power sector. They are going to even privatize NTPC, NHPC, the biggest PSUs of India. So competition is going to happen, and obviously it is, as I said, it is a delicensed activity. Private investors will come and construct the power plants. It is private sector in participation in generation is going to increase. That is what basically I'm trying to say. Cost-based tariff reviewed by a designated agency. What it does means, say for example, you are establishing, for example, you are in a private sector and private sector promoter, and you are establishing a 100 megawatt thermal power plant within Tamil Nadu. So that is for thermal power plants. What are all the costs? The capital cost means the capital cost in the sense is like the cost which is required to construct a power plant on operation and everything. Every cost will be added up for that, and it will be divided by just the number of units generated. That will basically give you the tariff. So every single part of the thermal power plant will be accounted. Each and every single nut, bolt, or everything, every small parts of the thermal power plants will be accounted, and that will be divided by the number of units generated. So that will give you basically the tariff of the conventional power plants, which is a thermal power plant. So that is what the cost-based tariff, and that cost and units generated will be monitored by a central agency or a state agency. So reverse auctioning in renewables, what it means, like it is like nowadays in renewables, solar and wind, there is no such. After establishing the plant, there is no. They are not going to look out for your cost and generation. It is like basically before construction of power plants, you should quote the price. For example, I'll give you power at 2.36. So 100 megawatt I'm going to install in Tamil Nadu, Ramanathapuram district, and that 100 megawatt I will supply that power from 100 megawatt at 2.36. You have to quote your price before in order to win the bid. That is what happening in renewables. So only we have achieved a very small, very less rate of 2.36. It was recently achieved by SECI's auctioning of renewables. So that is the lowest rate we have achieved on the renewables. Still, it is expected to fall. That rupees 2.36 is expected to fall, meaning that we'll be getting 1 unit of electricity generated less than 2 rupees in future. So 100% FDI is approved within the generation vertical. 100% FDI means foreign direct investment, except atomic power generating units. Any foreign players, any foreign companies, or any foreign individual investors can invest for setting up of generating power plants within the country. So it is allowed, except atomic power generating units. That comes under the purview of central government entirely. No state government also has no authority when it comes for atomic power generating units. So then basically next is generating companies enter into long-term PPAs or the trade power in exchanges. What it does basically means that say for example, if you're establishing a thermal power plant and the useful life of there is a term called useful life, meaning that the useful life of a thermal power plant is 25 years. Meaning that the thermal power plant can operate for 25 years. A hydro power plant, the useful life is around 40 years. For solar power plant, it is around 25 years. Useful life means the respective number of years that power plant can operate. So that is called as useful life. For thermal power plant, it is for 25 years, and for 25 years, what the amount of power which they are generating, they can sell it to a distribution company into a power purchase agreement. That is called as a power purchase agreement. The distribution company, Tamil Nadu Electricity Board, will sign a power purchase agreement with the Thermal Power Corporation, Thermal Power Company, for 25 years to purchase the power. So that is called as a long-term PPAs. Or you can just if you are not having any long-term PPAs with any distribution companies or any particular consumer, you can sell the power generated in exchanges. We have dedicated exchanges in our country. Two big exchanges are there: Indian Energy Exchange and Power Exchange of India Limited. So you can sell power in that exchanges. Next, conventional power plant will thrive in near future. One exciting thing, one myth that everyone saying that renewables will be replacing conventional power plant. Solar will be totally covering the entire demand of India. Wind power plants will be wind and solar combination will do the entire generation. So that is not going to be possible as of now, because we are not having any the technical. It has both technical also and economic limitations, because technical limitations are like, as you know, that the solar can generate a maximum for 5 to 6 hours. After that, there will be no generation at all from solar power plants. Wind generation depends upon the wind flow in a particular area. So with that, the technical limitations, you can't replace conventional thermal power plants. Thermal power plants will be needed in future also in order to operate the base loads. The thing is that the presence of thermal power plants will be reduced as we come along with new inventions such as battery storage, pumped hydroelectric storage. That is, when there is scope for storage, then basically there might be a reduction in the conventional power plants. So another one big challenge in generation vertical is that need for clean and sustainable energy is the biggest challenge for conventional power plants. As we know that we have signed the Paris climate agreement and many other obligations India is having. So the thing is that we have to basically reduce our carbon emissions by certain percentage, and we are so that is going to be a real challenge when it comes to the thermal power sector, which is basically emitting carbon, which is the major source of carbon emissions within the country. So that will be challenging for the conventional power plants. So this is the general idea of the generation vertical within the power plant, power sector, and this is the current status. If you look into it, they are mostly the thermal part. They are in total. They are generating around 230 gigawatt. Basically the total installed capacity of India is around 370 gigawatt. Grand total, if you look into the last row, you can find the number 370. So that is the as of May 2020, we have that much amount of power plants installed within the country. And out of that 370 gigawatts, 230 gigawatt are thermal power plants, and 6.7 gigawatt is of nuclear power plant, and hydro we have around like 45 gigawatts. So this is the basic idea, and renewables are covering around like 87 gigawatt. So this is the basic breakup of the installed capacity within the country. Is there any doubts that you want to raise? Is there any anyone? Okay, fine. I'll just move on. Keep in mind that we are having 370 gigawatt. Out of that, more than 50-60%, we are still dependent on thermal power plants only. Not renewables have less than present, so like 87 gigawatt out of 370 gigawatt. This is the breakup of renewables. We are having wind 37 gigawatt. One interesting fact still is that we see a lot of news about solar. See to hear that still solar installations are 34 gigawatt when compared to wind installations of 37 gigawatt, because wind installations in India started around 1990s, and solar installations in a huge scale, it started basically after 2010 to after 2005 to 2010. So wind is still having more percentage when compared to solar energy, and small hydropower is also renewable energy according to this central government. So that is also, we are having a 4 gigawatt installed capacity, and then biopower of 9 gigawatt and waste to power of 0.1 gigawatt. So it's basically adds up to 87 gigawatt total installed capacity of renewable power within our country. So this is the renewable status as of May 2020. So this is basically an interesting slide to look on. The thing is that, as I mentioned in the previous slide, we have an installed capacity of around 370 gigawatt. Just note it down. We have an installed capacity of 370 gigawatt hour, meaning that if every power plant operates in a full scale, we are going to generate 370 gigawatt hour of electricity. But it is not happening there right now. See, for example, in this table, if you look around 2019 to 20, the requirement is like just only 129. If that is in million units, if basically million units in the sense like it is like a hour part is added. If you just eliminate the hour part and look into it, it is basically 129 gigawatt is going to be our the peak demand is going to be around like 182 is our peak demand, and we have an installed capacity around 370 gigawatt. So still we are unable to meet the power, and we have a deficit of 0.7%. What it means is like having an installed capacity of 370 gigawatt, we are unable to meet the peak of 182 gigawatt. It is roughly the peak is around half of the installed capacity. In that, we are unable to meet by 0.7%. So this is the greatest challenge when it comes to power sector. Technical difficulties are there, economic difficulties are there, so dispatch related difficulties are there. So this makes our power sector not to achieve our peak. Still, we haven't achieved our peak. If you look in the previous historical data also, we have never become a surplus country in a calendar year or a financial year, power surplus country. So I think it might change in future, that we'll be meeting our peak demand very soon in the upcoming years. So this is what I will try to wind up from this regarding the generation sector. Is there any doubts regarding anything from generation sector? Hello, am I audible?
No doubt, sir.
Yes, Deepak, audible.
Sir, thank you.
Audible, Deepak, you can continue.
Okay. So
The question
that is
answer
the
session
basic.
will be handled the last, Deepak.
Okay.
They will
Sir,
post
sure.
in question answer chat box. We will discuss question answer last after
Okay,
the
sir,
session.
sure, sir. Okay.
Okay, Deepak. Carry
So
on.
this is the basic idea of the generation sector within our country, and the next it is transmission sector. As I mentioned, that transmission is a natural monopoly. So what is natural monopoly? I'll give you an example right now. So this is this is the infrastructure, transmission infrastructure of our country. This is maximum owned by Power Grid Corporation of India Limited, 50% of the lines. If you think that if you say that if you can introduce the competition, and if Power Grid has established this much amount of line, say for example, if Adani is coming into transmission in certain area, they'll also construct our own transmission lines. So transmission line construction infrastructure problem makes the transmission sector a natural monopoly. It is like already we have enough infrastructure, spacing is a problem. So obviously this sector becomes a natural monopoly. Presence of only one company, every each of this line and this each of this transmission line in the map I show is owned by only one particular company, either PGCL or Adani or some other companies. But it is there is no presence of two or three transmission lines within a particular area to evacuate the electricity from a generation power. So that is basically what I mean by natural monopoly. If there is no natural monopoly, then you will see huge, like the entire map is covered again with the transmission lines. So it is waste of capital, waste of resources and everything. So this segment needs to be a natural monopoly segment. And in our country, we have one nation, one grid, means that any power where we can, for example, generating power plant, Neyveli Lignite Corporation, which is around Chennai, it can generate power and it can evacuate its power to West Bengal. It can evacuate its power to Maharashtra and everything. Every state within the grid is connected. We have one nation, one grid. And fixed tariff is set for transmitting of power, POC charges. What does it basically means is like generation is basically competitive. For example, as I said, reverse based competitive bidding happens there. So we have come to a very low price of 2.36, meaning that 10-20 companies will be quoting, I'll be giving 100 megawatt at 3 rupees, I'll be giving power at 4 rupees, I'll be giving at 2 rupees, and so on and so forth. So basically the lowest quoted power will come for generation. But in transmission, we don't have any competition. So basically it is like tariff will be imposed. Like for example, if you want to evacuate power from Tamil Nadu to Kerala, the evacuation will be taking place, say for example, through PGCL controlled transmission line. So PGCL will be imposing some tariff for, say for example, I'll be imposing this for megawatt hour basis. For example, 6 rupees per megawatt, 7 rupees per megawatt. It will they'll depend. It will be it will be quoted by the Power Grid Corporation of India Limited, and that is the calculation of those charges is a very big task, and that is called as POC charges, point of contact charges, and there is a big algorithm and formula for calculation of those charges. And PGCL, biggest transmission utility monopoly, single company owned by central government, and it has around 1,51,507 circuit kilometers and transmission capacity of about 3,55,209 MVA and 239 substations under its control. So what it is now, just a technical question to you guys. What is the difference between kilometers and circuit kilometers? Does anyone know? This is a simple basic question. When it comes to transmission and everything, you can understand that. What is the difference between kilometers and circuit kilometers? So basically, explain. If basically within a kilometer, if four circuits are there, four lines of circuits are there, it is called as 4 circuit kilometers. If two feeders are there, it is basically within a kilometer. It is called as 2 circuit kilometers. That is how you calculate for the circuit kilometers. And POSOCO, Power System Operation Corporation, is the biggest, is the operator of transmission system with the help of NLDC and RLDC. These are dispatch centers. PGCL is responsible for construction of the transmission lines. For example, if you want to construct a transmission line from Maharashtra to Madhya Pradesh, PGCL is responsible for it. They will construct the line. Who will operate that line? That operation parts falls under POSOCO. And who will dispatch the electricity? Dispatch in the sense who will be scheduling the electricity. For example, electricity, as you know, it is like it travels at the near light speed. So proper scheduling should take place because as we know that only one line is present and we have to use that to the maximum extent. We should not get into a congestion part. Congestion means that you can't move electricity from one place to another. That is a big headache when it comes to transmission. You should not get into that part. So proper scheduling should take place. Like at this 5 o'clock, I'm going to transmit 500 megawatt of electricity through this transmission line. That part will be done by NLDC, RLDC. So those are dispatch agencies, and based on voltage of transmission, transmission is divided into two segments: transmission and sub-transmission. And after the Electricity Act 2003, competition is being introduced in the development of transmission systems. For example, like PGCL, as I said, it will develop transmission lines. Nowadays, what they are going is like they are also going for competitive-based bidding. For construction of a power plant, not for only one for transmission line will be constructed, but that transmission line will be constructed by the lowest bidder to the PGCL. So specialized green energy corridors are being operated and constructed for transmitting renewable power. Say, for example, there is two types of there are two green energy corridors present in South India and west part of India. Those transmission lines are specially dedicated for evacuating renewable power from the generators to the consumers. Only they involve transmitting of renewable power. Smart grid is expected to revolutionize the entire transmission segment. As we know that smart grid is going to reshape the future of transmission segment. So this is basically the current status of transmission. We have around like 426,162 circuit kilometers within the country, and more than 40% is owned by PGCL, which is the biggest monopoly. The remaining are owned by or owned and operated by the private sector. Basically, one transmission line will be owned by only one company. So that is what I mean by a monopoly. So this is the current status of transmission. And this is the evolution of our grid. From in early days, we used to have 5 grids, and those merged into 3 grids now. And recently, in 2013, I think so, 2006, sorry, 13, the new grid and the south grid was synchronized to become an all India grid. So all India grid means like the frequency, voltage levels at a particular line, everything remains the same with all throughout the country. If the frequency changes at a certain point, it affects the whole grid. That is what I mean by all India grid. Before, like I think so, before 2013, there was a blackdown which happened in the new grid, which is basically the northern part of India, and it didn't affect the southern grid because at that point of time the southern grid was just isolated from the new grid. The entire new grid experienced a blackout, and it is a typical case study when it comes to transmission segment. If you guys are interested into it, look out, just study about that blackout and how they restarted. That is totally a technical thing. How they restarted the grid. Actually, Kolkata Electricity Supply Company from West Bengal, they helped to restart the entire new grid. So if you are so interested into technicalities, just look at this case study. And finally, the distribution segment. See, for example, power flows from generation, transmission, distribution to consumer. But the revenue is, which is the important part when every business, it is revenue is the most important part. And revenue here flows just opposite to the power flow, meaning that from consumer distribution, transmission, then to generators, they get the revenue back like that. It is vice versa, and it is the most important link in the power sector distribution, as it is a revenue relation point. It is the starting of the revenue relation point. But not recently, for many years, distribution segment is making huge amount of losses. For example, last year, financial year 19, distribution companies made around like 27,000 crore losses, meaning that distribution companies around India, like TNEB and for example, Kerala Electricity Board and every electricity board combining, their losses are around, financial losses are around 27,000 crores. Annually, we are making a loss of 30,000 crores to 50,000 crores. So it is a very huge amount. Operational inefficiencies, lack of competition, and lack of technology. These are the major problems when it comes to distribution segment. They are the major reasons for this amount of losses. And if you see around the regulatory assets, meaning what is regulatory assets in the sense, this year I'm making a loss of 30,000 crores. Next year I'm making a loss of 50,000 crores. Still the losses are losses, and it is not paid, and it is being added. So a cumulative of losses, for example, last 3 years, last 4 years, last 5 years losses added cumulatively, that will be represented by regulatory assets. The total losses up to financial year 19 in India is 1.35 lakh crores. So that is the amount of losses in the distribution segment. So basically, the ideal case for distribution is that it should be competitive in nature, because we'll see how it can be made into into competitive business. So because of presence of natural monopolies, for example, in Tamil Nadu, we have only one distribution company, TNEB. So because of that, we are making losses, because naturally it should be competitive. That segment should be competitive, but it is not competitive. So we are making, so it leads to operational inefficiencies. So there is no proper operations. So we are making losses, these huge amount of losses there. So this is the total overview of the distribution segment. And this is one interesting statement from N. Chandrasekharan, who is the chairman of Tata Sons. He is from Tamil Nadu. So he's saying that you take the power sector, my recommendations would be that how do we ensure that each of these power plants in this country, no matter whose, how do you get it optionalized? So how do you arrest the loss of discoms? We should privatize them. So basically, he is giving an idea that privatization of discoms will be helpful to the revival of this economy, and many others around the country are voicing for the privatization of discoms. So what privatization happens basically is like, if Tamil Nadu Electricity Board, if it is being, say for example, if it is being privatized, the lines, the transformers and everything will be owned by Tamil Nadu Electricity Government, basically Tamil Nadu government. But the supply of electricity will be given by many companies like Adani, Reliance, Tata Power, and etc. For example, it is like, think about like using a cell phone business. The presence of 2 or 3 companies are there, but the infrastructure are shared by those companies. Like for example, cell phone tower, if you see, most of those companies are now going for a shared tower options. Like one tower will be shared by 2 or 3 companies and everything. Similarly here, every physical assets like transmission lines, distribution transformers and everything will be owned by Tamil Nadu government. But the supply part of the electricity, 3 or 4 companies will be supplying you electricity. You can, as a consumer, say for example, I can choose from either Reliance or Adani or Tata Power or Renew Power, or so there are a lot of companies. EDF is there, so there basically you can get power from those organizations. It is like that. That is going to be the future of everything if private distribution, if privatization happens. Already privatization has been happening around the union territories. The central government has pushed the privatization of discoms in union territories. So during this pandemic, during this COVID pandemic, so very soon we can expect the privatization of discoms in states also. It is going to be the future of the distribution segment. So this is how it is going to be. This part, it is basically very technical, very business part. I'll explain it later, or if you want an explanation of this part, you can contact me personally. If you this is basically, we can skip through this. And power markets, as I said, it is like it is useful for trading of electricity. Still 90% of the power which is generated by the companies are they enter into a long-term power purchase agreement with the discoms, meaning that if I am operating a thermal power plant of 100 megawatt, I will sign a power purchase agreement. I am bound to supply for them to 25 years. I can't trade it through electricity through markets. So basically, so only 4% of the volume generated within India is traded in the power exchanges. This also is expected to rise in the future. So one basic thing is that one good the sector will become most efficient if the commodity are traded in the exchanges. For example, shares, equity shares, for example, those are traded in exchanges. You have clear information of what is the price of the share, how much volume is of the share, who owns how much amount of share. So that transparent information will come only if more power traded through exchanges. So we are expecting this part of the power sector also to boom very soon after the private sector participation. So this is basically, if you see from 2009 to 2017, there is basically the volume of power traded in exchanges is basically increasing. Exchanges in the sense, think about like National Stock Exchange and National Stock Exchange, Bombay Stock Exchange. Similar to that, power exchanges are there. Two power exchanges are there in the Indian Energy Exchange and Power Exchange of India Limited. Those are the two exchanges as of now right in India. And this is the volume, and as you see that if the amount of volume, if it is increasing, the prices of the electricity also getting reduced. But keep a note that correlation doesn't always means causation. So these are all some of the important agencies involved in the power sector. As time constraint, I'm just giving an overview, just moving through that. And these are some. I'll just skip this slide because I'm not having time. So I'll just focus on what are all the opportunities will be provided by the power sector for you as a guys. So these are going to be the future of power sector. Smart meters, prepaid meters, net metering, retail supply of, as I said, that presence of 3 or 4 private companies in distribution, smart grid, microgrid in the sense like you are not connecting it to the centralized grid. You are generating power in rural areas. It will be playing a major part. For example, where distribution lines are inaccessible, you can construct a power plant there. Power plant in the sense solar power plant, wind power plant, and you can electrify those village with the help of microgrid systems. Electric vehicles is going to play a big role in the future, and grid scale battery storage at grid scale is going to be playing a big role. And like as you know that there are strategic reserves for petroleum, for oil storage. There are certain strategic reserves for oil storage. In future, we can expect strategic reserves for electricity storage also. And the blockchain-based trading, blockchain is the next big thing that is happening by eliminating the middlemen. So that will be playing a big role. So market design of the power, as I said, that more volume of power will be traded in power exchanges in the years to come. Increased renewable-based generation. So conventional power plants will shrink, but not to a great extent. But renewables will play a major role. Clean conventional energy generations will play a major role. So that is going to be then digitalization. This is the biggest thing which is going to happen in the power sector. If you want to work in power sector, you can work equipped with one or two skills of this range. Either you can develop your skills in electric vehicles, blockchain-based trading, improve anything like those kind of. If you equip yourselves with those skills, you can survive in the nearby power sector. This is how the future is going to be. I'll be just giving basic idea. Within 2030 we'll be having 817 gigawatt. Now we are having around 370 gigawatt. It's basically more than 150 percentage of capacity addition is going to be added within next 10 years. So development is in power sector is basically is going to happen, and per capita consumption is going to rise to 1894 units during financial year 22. And the gas and hydropower plants will play a major role, and it is technical because of the technical requirements of those power plants, because ramping can be done easily with those power plants.
நான் போறேன்.
Hello. So this is a very important slide for you guys. This is going to be the last slide also, and if you want to work in the technical part, the one big thing is like you should clear GATE. Give it a try. If you want to work into the technical PSUs and everything, it is mandatory for you to crack the GATE. And try interviews for independent power producers, meaning that try interviews for Adani Power, Reliance Power, and everything individually. Technical knowledge plus data analysis knowledge also will be required in the for forecasting and everything. Next, in manufacturing segment also, you can work in smart meters, electric vehicles, manufacturing core electrical components and everything. And if you feel that you have to gather more knowledge regarding the power sector and everything, especially core power sector, transmission segment, and those things, you can look around the NTPA. That is National Power Training. It is actually NPTA. I'm sorry for the typo. It is NPTA. That is a power training institute which is owned by the central government. Then you can become a technical consultant, which is basically requires a huge number of experience, and try to explore. Like that is the advice I'm trying to give you guys. If you want to be an core sector professional, you should try exploring site related work. So for the initial part of your career, at least work in sites for 2 to 3 years in order to gather technical knowledge. After that, you can either go around the business side of the verticals of the power sector. So this is basically, that's it. So thank you for your valuable time. I hope that I've conveyed something useful to you guys. So that's it from my side. Any doubts?
Hello, good evening, Mr. Deepak. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd like to ask you, like, as of a report of last month, they're saying that state-owned power distributor DISCOMs will end up owing around 4.5 trillion rupees with a T. So how will
can you come again?
Yeah, is it like the state power DISCOMs would
Yes.
would end up owing around 4.5 trillion rupees with a T at the end of this fiscal deposit. So how will the DISCOMs be able to come up, or because it will again keep on
it will
increasing.
affect the entire power sector value chain, because having that amount of debt is very poisonous to the entire business. What central government is trying to do is like they have introduced Uday scheme. That is an interesting scheme which focuses on reducing both technical losses and financial losses of DISCOMs. In that, they are bundling those loss that debt into marketable security. This is something so technical, financially technical parts. They are bundling into marketable securities, and they are selling it to other persons who are interested in debt securities. So by basically doing that, they are reducing the losses. They are trying to reduce the losses. In a long run, the basic idea is to privatize the DISCOMs. That is going to be that is the way out from this losses. That report, what you said is 4.4 trillion. It is might happen or might not happen, but the losses will be there. The financial losses of DISCOMs will continue if it is in this stage.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? So I hope there are no more questions. Then let's, sir, Jagan sir.
Deepak,
Yes, sir.
somebody's
Let me look into it, sir.
Sabarinathan question.
Okay. Distance and displacement is current example.
Then any
Yes,
other?
that's it. That's it. Yeah, Sabarnathan, that's a good explanation. Distance and displacement, meaning displacement in the sense you are trying to say how much power, the amount of power which is can be given. Kindly tell me how the regulatory asset base can be calculated. Sir, sir, the regulatory asset calculation depends upon certain regulation under the CERC, sir. Central Electricity Regulatory Commission, they are having set of regulations to calculate the regulatory asset. Say, for example, last year we had a loss of around like 30,000 crores, and before that year we 50,000 crores. The commission, what they omit certain amount of that bad loans as like it can't be, you can't do anything, so they omit. So they take some prospect amount of amount only into regulatory assets, and not the entire amount, not the entire debt is taken into regulatory asset. Non-performing assets like gas-based power plants, the debts which they are having, they leave it out. They just clear it out, and they say that bad loans you can't recover them. Other loans they'll try to recover through regulatory assets. So that is. So what is the procedure to trade power? So basically, you have to be a licensed trader under the CERC. You have to register yourself as a licensed trader as an under the CERC, and the minimum quantity of power which is needs to be traded is 1 megawatt. So at least you should get 1 megawatt of power so that you can become a trader. Or basically you can trade in with the help of already licensed traders. That will be the easy thing. Getting a license from the trading, it is a very big thing, sir. And interesting part is like Tamil Nadu is trading more power in the exchanges, and the volume of power traded by Tamil Nadu and the industries in Tamil Nadu are constantly increasing. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Bala, sir.
Yeah, I have one more question.
Yes, yes.
What is the scope of power trading commodity in future?
What is the
Scope of power trading commodity in future?
power trading commodity in future? Yeah, as I said, it is going to be in rise. Like 4% of total volume only we are just trading in exchanges. So at least in the nearby futures, with private participation, we can expect around like an increase of around 20% in the exchanges. And the exchanges now the government also has got financial derivatives, like not only physical trading of power is also taking, financial trading of power also is taking place. That's quite a technical part. So these are all the market drivers. So with the government is also actively promoting the power trading through exchanges. So we can, it is basically it will be having what you say, linear incremental increase in the future. So the future is very great when it comes to power exchanges and everything. So I think so. Another one exchange is also is being planned by NTPC, National Thermal Power Corporation. So third exchange is going to be coming for our country. So it is basically it is going to be increasing. I would not say exponentially, but a linear increase it will be there. Yes, Aditya Vishnu. Yeah.
Yeah, so Sweden's economy is one economy which is completely running, which is completely meeting its power demands through waste. They're converting their
Yes.
waste into power.
Yes.
And in around 2016 or 17, maybe they ran into an interesting problem where they ran out of waste
Yeah,
to generate power.
they imported the waste from Britain and all other
Yeah.
European countries.
Yeah.
That's typical. They paid for, this is an important like that history also. Sweden
Exactly. Yeah.
Sweden actually paid for the waste paid for the waste to get those waste. And see, for Sweden is a very small country, and thus energy requirements are totally different. We are also having scope for waste to energy power plants, but as of now, the main thing it is like the calorific value of the waste we have to take into account. Sweden's calorific value, the European waste which they are generating has more calorific value. If you, for example, if you burn 1 kg or 1 ton of waste, you will be generating more energy. But that is not the case of India. Waste segregation has to take place at the beginning. Segregation has to take place from household so that you can, so the scope for waste to energy power plant increases. So we are having certain constraints regarding that. Was that your question, Mr. Aditya Vishnu?
Actually, right. Now it is true we are not generating enough waste with enough calorific value to meet our demands. But then again,
Yes.
some contribution would be still some contribution, right?
Yeah,
So
there are projects being planned. So it's basically like, see, for example, if you are having investment, and I'm giving an example, if you are having investment and if you are having not even investment, if you are having prospect idea, you can submit for an investment and you can get it done. There are projects being developed. So in Delhi also, I read a news like a week before they are going for another one waste to energy generation plants. So it is going to be increasing, but not in a very fast manner, Mr. Aditya Vishnu.
right, that was very informative. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Are there any other questions?
Yes, sir. Tell us higher studies opportunities in power sector.
Uh, Higher sector studies in the sense I've completed my MBA from University of Petroleum Energy Studies. Is basically a business related study regarding power management. So that is one scope you have right there. And apart from that, if you I would say the better option for you is like NTPC is there. NTPC Business School that has been recently established in Ahmedabad in collaboration with IIM Ahmedabad. So that is good school for business vertical of power sector. Then for technical things like you can, as I said, that you can approach NPTA. Technical, and mostly there is no study for technical things of other than NPTA and everything, because experience matters when it comes to the technical things and everything. Business related, we have colleges to teach you how things work. Hello. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Jagan, sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir. I can.
So
Yes.
the on-grid charging stations will be going to L. So little bit about on-grid charging stations.
On-grid charging stations for electric vehicles.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Actually, I've done my project, both of my thesis project and internship project on electric vehicles, and I've visited many electric vehicle manufacturing plants also. I've visited charger plants also. That ongoing, sir, as of now, the thing is that the demand for electric vehicles and the demand for chargers are parallel. It is basically a chicken and egg problem, they will say. The thing is that either you have to develop the charger infrastructure first in order to promote the demand of electric vehicles, or else there should be demand of electric vehicles to promote the demand of charging infrastructure. Both demand are parallel, so that is the biggest problem when it comes to electric vehicles and charging business. And the thing is that it might rise in the future if government is trying to install more charging stations, because like there are many studies saying that charging infrastructure, regardless of the demand, you should install that charging stations even if you run into losses in order to promote electric vehicles. So recently the phase of development in electric vehicle is little bit slow when compared to everything. So it will catch up very soon, because the segment didn't achieve its economies of scale. That is the very important thing. Economies of scale, this is for producing cheap components. Cheap components. That is the thing. So yeah, that is the problem. So if everything sorted out, then the demand will set to rise to increase. There is a Chennai-based company, Aether Energy. They are having their own charging infrastructure. If you want to have a look into others, if you want to have a look into it, study the Aether Energy grid. That will give an idea. So, yes, sir.
Okay, and thank you, Deepak.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks a lot. Thank you, everyone.
So any other questions, Darsnika?
So no more questions, sir. It looks
Deepak, one more question.
Yes, yes, Gaurav.
Charging is a battery manufacturing company or just charging company?
Battery manufacturing company or just charging companies?
Yeah, whether is there any battery manufacturing company in India?
Yes, the thing is that there are certain battery manufacturing company. I think Exide is a battery manufacturing company, but the thing is that electric vehicles require lithium ion and advanced battery technologies. There are certain battery manufacturers which are doing, and there is one company based out of Andhra. There is an they manufacture thermal electric batteries. So there are batteries, but it is not more. We are importing most of the batteries from China only, lithium-ion batteries. Yeah, Exxon Mobil, that is one.
Thank you, Deepak.
Thank you, sir.
It's
Thank you.
a very good, informative. I think a lot of take-home messages for your throughout the presentation, because each and every point of our presentation will have a lot of messages.
Thank you, sir.
I'm very much delighted with what kind of that is what you. So after 10 or 20 years experience, they'll plot this type of presentation. You have such a presentation. You have done such a presentation.
Thank you, sir. The foundation has been put forward by NGP only, so it helped me a lot, sir. Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you, Deepak. Rashnika, you can proceed.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Deepak, and thank you everyone for joining us today. Our next session on career opportunities in the field of electromagnetics will be presented by Mr. S. Sabarinathan, Senior Engineer, ZF India Private Limited, tomorrow. So once again, thank you everyone. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.